Hey friends, welcome back to the Make Good Fashion podcast. I'm Jasmine. Thanks so much for being here. So for the last few weeks, I've been talking a lot about wholesale and how to grow your brand with retail partnerships, basically selling your brand into retail stores. And I've talked about how this can be such a powerful tool for your business in terms of sales, in terms of visibility, brand credibility. There's so many benefits that come to wholesaling your brand. And I definitely think this is something to incorporate into your business. However, there are some challenges that come with wholesaling as well. I never want to paint this picture like it's a perfect solution and it's without its flaws, because with any area in business, it has its own set of challenges. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to share with you some challenges that may come up when wholesaling your brand to retailers and ways you can try to avoid them or mitigate the risk. The things I'm going to speak about today are things I wish every brand knew so that they could save themselves a lot of time, headaches, and money. My goal for you is that as you start to scale your business, that you can feel confident knowing what you're stepping into and prepared for anything that may come your way. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first challenge I want to talk about is not receiving your payment on time. So how the process works is that when a retailer places an order with your brand, you as a brand are responsible of producing the items that they've purchased and shipping them out to the retail store. And typically you don't get paid until after those goods are produced and either ready to ship, or sometimes after the item shipped to the store, depending on the payment terms that you and the retail store agree upon when they place the order. But sometimes the retailers do not pay on time. And this can be super frustrating, especially because you have fronted this money to produce the production run for the items that they purchase, and you just want to get paid. So this isn't completely avoidable because obviously you cannot control when someone pays you, but there are some things that you can do to mitigate the risk of this. So the first way is trying your best to get a deposit. And to be real with you, with larger retail stores, it's harder to do. If you have a partnership with a huge department store or chain store, usually they will not give you a deposit, because to be honest, they know that you need them more than they need you. And if there's any way they don't have to pay you this money up front, they're not going to do it. But with smaller stores like boutiques or standalone stores, I find that it's easier to try to get a deposit. So let's say you ask for a 30% deposit pre-shipment and 70% of the balance is due when the goods are ready to ship. That means that the retailer needs to give you 30% of the order amount up front when they place the order, and then they'll give you the 70% when the goods are done being produced and ready to ship to them. So the reason why this is a great way to kind of mitigate the risk of the delayed payment is because, one, you're getting money up front, right? Which is amazing because you can also use that 30% deposit to go towards your production run. And then all you have to get is the 70% that is due. So this doesn't completely take away the risk, because obviously they can still be late with the 70%, but at least you have something in your hands right away. I also want you to try your best to get a credit card on file for the retail stores that you work with. Now, again, this probably won't work with larger retailers or department stores, but is a great tactic for smaller boutiques or standalone stores. You can ask to put a credit card on file for the retailer that you're working with, and also have language on the credit card form that says that we as a brand are able to charge your card when your orders are ready to ship. So that way, when you have a new order from this store, you don't have to wait to get a payment method from them, but you have something on file that you can charge right away. The next thing I would say, which won't probably make sense right away, but hear me out and let me explain. The next thing I would say is build a strong relationship with the retail buyer that you work with. So when you get a order from a retail store, you are working with their store buyer, right? So the store buyer is a person who purchases and decides what's going to go into the store. And so a lot of times brands make the mistake of just building a relationship with the buyer to get an order and then they disappear. You never talk to the buyer again. But sales is really about building relationships. And it's very important that you not only talk to the retail buyer when you're trying to get an order, but that you continue to build on that relationship throughout that partnership. So some things I like to do is like on holidays, I'll send the buyers from the stores that I work with like a gift in the mail, or, on their birthday, I will make sure to reach out. I make sure to build like a friendship with them. And the reason why this kind of mitigates the risk of delayed payment is because when you have a friendship with someone, they're going to advocate for you, right? And so you have to understand also that the retail buyers are not the people who are actually distributing the payment. It's usually someone in the accounting department, right? But if I go and tell my retail buyer, let's say I got an order from Bloomingdale's and hasn't paid me yet, I can go to that retail buyer who placed the order with me and say, hey, Jennifer, or whatever their name is, we haven't received payment yet. It's been due on this date. We really need to get this payment. Because me and Jennifer have this relationship that we've been building and have rapport with each other, Jennifer's probably going to go then and advocate for our brand and talk to the accounting department and get things moving. And I think also, like, if you go to the retail buyer and say, like, we haven't got paid, blah, 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 they're going to feel a sense of shame and like guilt of like, oh no, like, I'm so sorry. And again, they're going to want to advocate for you. So make sure as you're building your retail partnerships that you're also building relationships. The next challenge that may arise when forming these retail partnerships is that a store may go out of business. And this is a tough one because, again, this is not something that you can really control from happening. And this is just something that comes up, right? So for example, this is a real life experience that I've had. It didn't happen with my brand, but a brand that I was a sales manager for. So a brand that I used to work for got a huge order from this retail store. And you have to also realize that a lot of retail stores place orders 6 months in advance to when we actually ship the goods. And so by the time it was time to ship the goods, the store had gone out of business and they were like, we can't take these products in, which is really frustrating for a brand because then you are stuck with the inventory that you didn't plan for. And so again, there's no way of completely avoiding this, but here are some ways that you can handle it. So if something like that happens, one thing I want to say off top is do not rely on one store to hold your business afloat. I think this is a mistake that we make where we put all of our eggs in one basket and we get this huge order from one store and we're like, okay, we've made it. You want to make sure that you're diversifying your sales, right? And you're getting multiple stores that are placing orders with you. So if one store goes out of business, it's not going to hit as hard. You have all these other stores also paying you. So don't put all of your eggs in one basket, diversify. The second thing I'm going to say is that there are ways that you can handle the inventory that you get left behind with if something like this happens. One way to do it, and what we did for the brand that I worked with, is that we took the inventory that was canceled because the store went out of business, and we then used it as immediate inventory, meaning that we would then reach out to other stores and tell them, hey, we have immediate inventory available. If you want to test out the brand, this is a great way to do it because there's no minimum. So we didn't require minimums for this inventory and we just sold it to other stores. We also sold it through our online shop. So we use that as inventory that we held in-house. Another thing I'm going to say is that when you get an order from a retail store,
You want to make sure they're signing a terms and condition contract where it's showing them that they're liable to pay for anything that they ordered. So in the event of something like this happens, that you have this agreement to show them that they're still responsible for paying.
and then there's times that they simply cannot do it. And so then you want to go back to point A and point B that I mentioned, which is selling off the inventory and focusing on diversifying your sales. So another thing that can come up is order cancellations due to your delivery window. So when you sell your brand wholesale, you have to have a delivery window, which means the time of which you are saying these goods are going to ship to the retail store. So when they sign off on the order, they are agreeing that the dates that you have advised that they will receive the order is when they're going to receive their order. And if they don't receive their order by then, they have the right to cancel. And so there are some practical ways to avoid this from happening, which one is giving yourself some buffer room. Don't do an unrealistic delivery window. Make sure you're communicating with your factory and finding out a realistic timeline of how long it's going to take to produce these goods. And even when they give you a certain delivery day, make sure that you are adding buffer space into that so that you give yourself some time for packing and shipping and all of that. If you have produced clothing before, you know that there's a lot of things that can go wrong in production or delays that can happen. So you just want to account for that. Okay, the next challenge that can arise is crazy payment terms. So you've probably heard of terms like net 30, net 60, net 90, which means like if we say net 30, that means that you get paid 30 days after the goods are received, or net 60, you get paid 60 days after the good received, or net 90, you get paid 90 days after the goods are received, and so on. So net whatever means that's when you're going to get paid, right? Which when you think about net 90, 90 days after the goods are shipped, you're going to get paid sounds insane, right? Like that just doesn't even make any sense. Like you have to wait 3 months to get paid. So this is how you can avoid this from happening. One thing that you need to know is that everything is negotiable. So if you get a order from like a Saks Fifth Avenue and they're like, the only way we're going to do this is net 90, you can still negotiate it. Don't take that for an answer. I would say something like, thank you so much for your order. We would love to fulfill this and we would love to have this partnership, but we are unable to do net 90 terms. Are you able to do net 60 or net 30? Another thing you need to know is you don't need to accept the order. Like if they're not willing to budge, you don't have to say yes. And I know sometimes it's like, well, I really want to be in this store and this is like my dream store. But sometimes it's not worth it if waiting that long to get paid is going to maybe put you out of business or whatever it may look like. So I really encourage you, if something like this happens, to negotiate and try to get them to come down on those payment terms.
So another challenge that may come up is not being able to fulfill an order because you simply can't afford to. So especially for brands who are just starting out, maybe you don't have a ton of capital at your disposal. And let's say you get an order from a retail store and they're ordering a lot of quantities. And to produce that amount of things, obviously that takes capital. And if you're not getting a deposit or money up front to produce these items, you're going to have to find a way to fund it. And so this can be kind of tricky for people because they obviously want to accept the order. Like this is going to be a great opportunity to be in the store. But the reality is it's impossible to fund. If you watch the show Shark Tank, you'll often see people come on saying that they've received purchase orders from different stores, but they don't have enough funds to fulfill it. So my personal motto is like, where there's a will, there's a way for me, and I'm going to find a way to fund it, whether it means borrowing money or something. But I know that's not a feasible option for everyone. And so one way you can go about this is asking your retailer to reduce the order size. If you can reduce the order amount, you can tell them you're not able to fulfill this amount at this time, but you'd be able to do like half of it or whatever it may be. And so you can negotiate that with your retail partners. Now, whether they accept or not, I can't tell you. Like you'll just have to ask and see. But it's worth trying, right? So you don't have to decline the order altogether. So don't be afraid to ask to reduce the order size if you are not able to fulfill the order in its entirety.
And the last challenge I want to talk about that may arise when wholesaling your brand is chargebacks. Now, chargebacks are a thing that happen with larger retail stores. And a lot of the things I'm talking about is more so for the larger retail stores. Usually smaller stores are less problematic, but for whatever reason, larger stores have their issues. Anyways, so chargebacks are something that retailers have put into place if you do not follow their compliance and routing guide. So when you do a retail partnership with a large retailer, they give you a compliance guide. The compliance guide shows you how things should be packed, how it needs to be shipped, how the goods need to be prepared. Because when you think about it, a larger retailer, they're receiving goods all day long, right? So to make the process smoother for them, they're asking that the brands prepare the items in a certain way so it's ready to put on the store shelves or the store racks, right? So it tells you like where the hang tags need to be placed. Some stores require you to ship it in poly bags, like all of these things. And so what can happen is some stores will charge you for not following the compliance guide, which is crazy, right? Like you do this retail partnership to make money, not lose money. And the way that you can avoid this is just by simply reading the routing guide. And if you have team members or interns or whatever it may be in your business, you can delegate this to someone else to do because it does take time. Some of them are very thick routing guides, but you just want to make sure you're reading through it and not ignoring it. And as long as you follow the instructions and what they're asking you to do, then you will not be charged back. But if you're not following it, then you will. So it's very simple. Just follow the instructions, right? So those are some of the challenges that can arise when wholesaling your brand. And I know some of those things seem scary, but I just want to encourage you that in any area of your business, challenges can and will arise. And if you had the chutzpah to start a business, you can get through all of these things too. I also encourage you that once you have grown to a certain point and you're getting into multiple retail doors, that you delegate this off so that you can focus on what's important to you. You can do that by hiring someone, getting an intern, or even delegating the wholesale portion of your business to a fashion wholesale showroom that will handle all of this stuff for you. But as I mentioned today, there are ways to mitigate a lot of this risk or avoid them altogether. And so I don't want you to be fearful about taking this leap. There's risks that come with everything, and you are equipped to overcome them. If this episode was helpful to you, please share it with someone that may also find it helpful. Like the video and subscribe for more tips on how to start, launch, and grow your impactful fashion business. Hey, brand founders, are you ready to take the first step toward getting your design in retail stores? Well, I've got the perfect resource to help you get started. And that's our beginner's guide to getting your fashion brand into retail stores. A free step-by-step guide created to help emerging brands like yours break into the retail world. Inside, you'll discover how to find retailers that are the perfect match for your brand, what materials you need to impress buyers, and tips for navigating wholesale like a pro. To download this free guide, click the link in the description or head over to makegoodfashion.com/retail guide and start turning your retail goals into a reality.